Hello, everybody. Second Cross's Corner in just over 24 hours. I'm Martin Cross, and with me today in the corner is Matt Edge. And I'm not sure I need to say any more than Matt Edge.
It's very kind of you to say. Hi, Martin. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, it's brilliant that you're here, Matt. I've got to say, you obviously were such an important part of the Cambridge boat race crew, sitting in the bow seat a year ago where you won the boat race, and now in the stroke seat. Some would say even more important, but again, from the pictures we saw of you in the last 3 or 4 minutes of the boat race, you've become a cool celebra.
Yeah. I was certainly less useful in those last few minutes.
Yeah. So how are you feeling now? People, I think, were worried about you.
I think so. Yeah. As soon as I got hold of my phone, it didn't stop ringing for the next few days. I was very, very touched by all the concern, but no, I was all right. I needed a lie down and a banana and plenty of water. But yeah, the medical team at the finish were really great and got me back on my feet.
So they didn't take you to hospital or anything like that?
No. They just had a medical tent up by the boathouse, and they hooked me up to ECG, just checked that my heart rate was coming down as normal. And it held pretty steady on. It came down to about 120, 130 and was sort of staying there, but they said, that's all the excitement. And I was cleared to go.
How excited were you at the end of the boat race, or were you totally just zombified?
I was pretty wiped. I think, I don't think I wasn't really unconscious for any of it. I was sort of there. The lights weren't on, but someone was home, I think, rattling around up there. And I was when we crossed the finish, I think I knew that we won, but I was just sort of relieved to have not grabbed by that point.
So could you describe to us, is it like a screaming pain in your legs, or is it your heart just hasn't got any more to give? I mean, what is it that you became aware of?
I think it was just sort of just over the last sort of really back half of the race, my vision just sort of started to close in. I was seeing black around the edges, and then it just comes in and in until eventually you can't really see, and then it was just really sort of hard to keep everything tense in the right places and not sort of slump down and hold your body in the way that it needs to be, as you can probably tell from my
So I kind of we're going to have a look at that, and in terms of how that progressed through the race. So just to stick on that moment after the finish. So one thing I'm unclear is if you made the prize giving.
So they held the prize giving for as long as they could for the camera, and I think they got it right up to the half-hour slot we had on the BBC, and then they sent, we're going to run out of time, so they sent the guys up, and I was just coming round the corner. They wheeled me round.
In a pushchair, in a wheelchair.
In a pushchair.
Yeah.
And they all ran up and sprayed the champagne, and then the women ran up and Goldie ran up, and everyone was getting a photo. And then they got the first photo of everyone, and that was the sort of closing shot for the BBC. And then as soon as they cut away, that was broadcast over, I'd got there and sort of limped up to the stage, up off the wheelchair, and walked onto the stage to a big wall of English sparkling wine. I was absolutely drenched, and got a few photos up there with everyone, just after the broadcast cut, but still with the trophies and everything, which was nice.
Yeah. And are you remotely in the land of the living then, or were you still like half out of it, or
I sort of spent the whole thing from the end of the race trying to convince people I was fine, because I wanted to make it up to the podium. So, when the safety boat rushes over, I was there. No, I'm all right. I'm good. And trying to talk through with the paramedics that whether I'd get up on stage or whether we'd run out of time. And I was pretty pale in some of the photos, but
Did you attend any of the evening's celebrations or festivities
yeah, I managed to make it to the dinner.
in a wheelchair?
No. I was on my feet by then. I could so I managed to. I got a hand up onto the stage, but then I was walking about after that,
Yeah.
which was good. I did manage to miss de-rigging the boats, which was a plus, I guess.
Yeah. So, if I was to say, you're a hero, the hero of the boat race, the Cambridge hero of the boat race, how would that sound to you?
I probably I think probably looking at it a bit wrong. I think the way I see it is that actually I was very lucky that it was probably a mistake in how I was handling the race that almost led us to lose the race. Right. If I'd gone that deep, we probably didn't need to go that deep, and I ended up as a passenger. And I'm very lucky that the 7 guys behind me and Ed got me over the line without me.
So
Putting
not
any...
not a hero, but a potential villain.
Possibly. Yeah, thankfully we avoided that scenario. But
I've got to ask you: has anything like this remotely happened to you before in your own career?
I remember the sort of the darkness in the vision. That would come in a few times when I was younger on the ergo. But I think that's probably a fitness thing. And then actually in the lightweight 22 race, I had a similar thing where I was pretty knackered in the second half.
Yeah.
But I managed to back off fine and made it over the line. I didn't start flopping around or anything. And that was sort of we did our big move to break away, and then we sort of paraded home. But that was a lot less dramatic.
The thing is, in terms of calling you heroic, that a lot of rowers talk about, burying themselves and giving everything and, just go till you can't do any more. But actually, very few reach that point. But you actually did it.
Yeah. I think possibly more luck than judgment. I think I was just sort of trying to take good strokes every stroke. And when it got down to the back half of the race, I was really feeling it. It was sort of, I was focusing on getting a good stroke in on the next one, and we always say you've got to not worry about the second half of the piece. You'll get there, you'll find something, and you always do. It's well, in training, it feels like you always do.
Yeah.
And you never want to wish you pushed harder in the first half.
So what sort of watts are you are you pushing out close to 400 watts every stroke? What is your sort of range?
We're trying to off the start. Don't know how much Rob Baker would want me divulging.
Oh, just tell me rough average, because people will be interested in that sort of thing.
Yeah, no, we look to hit some pretty high watts off the start, but really the main thing was about holding a good level through in the how big of a range shall I give you?
Well, yeah,
500 range.
In the what, 3 to 500?
3 to 500 range.
Yeah, I reckon you're pretty consistent as an athlete, which is why Rob must like you in the stroke seat. That you must put out a pretty consistent wattage through the race, because some guys are up here and then they're kind of down here. You don't want those sort of guys in the stroke seat.
It's I'm not a big. We've got guys that can do quadruple digits off the start.
Wow.
And then they hit the big numbers there, and I'm certainly not one of those.
Yeah.
My my forte is definitely the base pace. Rob probably would like me to be more consistent still, but
yeah. Okay. How much of a celebrity were you in the evening/day after the race? Because I think if you look up Matt Edge, it kind of just comes with all these newspapers and quotes and pictures and films of you.
Yeah, no, it was very strange. At the evening, I was at the dinner, and my girlfriend was there as well. She did the race a few years ago, and she was pretty angry at me, basically. And I kept trying to, get there and say sorry and do some groveling, but I just couldn't move through the dinner because every time I tried to take a step, someone else stood up and said, "Oh, well done."
Yeah.
Are you doing okay? You looked really rough at the end, or something to that extent, which was very strange. And had lots of amazing. I mean, there's lots of really amazing rowers at that dinner, of whom a lot of I've looked up to for a long time. So it was really cool that they came up and said, "Well done."
Well, you'll be the one that people are looking up to in future years. This is someone who is near and dear to me, my sister, actually. People like stories, and Matt was the story. You were the story of the boat race. It's interesting. Thanks, Teresa. It's interesting that so your partner was. Should we give her a name check?
Oh, Amy Richardson. I'm sure she'll hate
Amy
hate
Richardson. I'm sure you hate that, Amy. But
she did the lightweight women's race in 22.
Okay, so she was annoyed at you because you couldn't find her quick enough at the ball.
No, I think she was annoyed at me for getting her all worried.
Yeah,
and couldn't find my phone fast enough to ring her and say that I was all right.
Yeah, she must have been absolutely frantic with worry because I think there was, we've seen people carted off to hospital in at the end of the boat race, and you were an obvious case to be taken to hospital. So I guess she must have been frantic.
Yeah. Thankfully, my dad was watching from Scullers.
Yeah.
So he could rush down and find. He found me pretty quick, I think.
Yeah.
And
that's right. I bet he was concerned as well.
He probably was. Although actually saying that, the other time I did actually have passed out before was as a junior. So my dad runs the Great North Run every year.
Yeah.
And when I was doing junior rowing, I was like, it can't be that hard. If my old man can do it, so I'd sign up to do it every year to try and beat him. Having I don't run at all really, and I definitely didn't at the time. And when I did it just before I went off to uni, it was a boiling hot day, and the last bit of the Great North Run, sort of into the last K.
Yeah.
You're in this shady bit, running down between some trees, down to the beachfront in South Shields, and then you take a left, and you run the last 800 or so meters along the beach, but suddenly you're in the sun.
Yeah.
And it was a boiling hot day, and I think I got to about 400 meters to go, and my legs kept going, but my body didn't, and I fell backwards. And I was very, very nicely picked up by two guys just running along. They hoisted me up, and my legs kept sort of whirring, but they were basically carrying me. I think my legs were sort of scraping the floor occasionally.
Oh,
they very, very nicely carried me the last 400 meters. And then that time I didn't remember it, but I did. I woke up in the medical tent.
What time did you do?
I think I was on for under 140, and that's what I was sort of trying to run and hit. I ended up being 143 maybe.
Okay, pretty cool. lots of people are watching. Stephen Bond's one of them, and he's asked the question, which I know others. Tony Ward, who's on training camp at the moment, the Hampton School, he also asked me.
Yeah.
And you've probably been asked. I could make up an answer to that, but we'll talk through the race, I think, from the start. But maybe just give a little bit of an answer to that question if you can, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very good question. I think Rob was probably thinking the same thing. We sort of came out of a really good spot, and I started to realize that actually there wasn't much left in the locker, and so I tried to sort of take it down a bit. But then we came round that corner after the into Chiswick Steps, and the wind picked up there, and that I think just took the last bit out of me. I was trying to keep setting the length and the rhythm and getting out front, but actually I don't think I was putting much down from there. But it was sort of the effort it took to get up to the catch and place correctly. Started to sap it out of me, and so that's where I was trying to communicate to Ed that probably Luca needed to take over. But
what did you say to him?
Something like Luca stroking, and then I think Ed misheard and called for Luca to get in time, follow me better. Sounds about right.
How much responsibility did you feel being stroke of that crew?
Yeah, I thought, I mean, it was interesting going into it. Last year, I stroked one of the fixtures, and sort of me and Ollie Parish had alternated for the first half of that term before the race. I did the second fixture against Leander. Didn't go very well. I didn't stroke very well, and then we tried Luca in stroke, and I row quite differently to Ollie. Ollie's brought out of St Paul's. He rows a nice, lots of time around the back before he goes out for the next one. And I'm the opposite. I quite like a little bit of flow there, and keep moving out. And so actually, then we tried Luca, and from the first session, I was like, right, Luca. He'd sat behind both of us in 7 throughout all of that, and actually found a really nice middle ground between those two. He was a really great stroke for that crew, I thought. And I kind of thought, all of this term just gone, that I was sort of, waiting for them to say, "Oh, we'll stick the bow rig in and put Luca back at stroke, and maybe I'd get 7." But because Luca did a great job. He's a winning stroke man. You'd think that they could go with him, but then actually our finishing coach Marco, I can't remember if it was the day before the race or the day of the race, or maybe it was even like while we were waiting for the shutters to go up. He came up and was just like, you've got a good rhythm. You've got to trust your rhythm. Don't try and row the rhythm of the guys behind you. You've got to put down your pattern. And like, you're in this seat for a reason. It's because you can do a good job. And that was, I mean, maybe I trusted that too much and took it too on board. But I mean, that really sort of lifted me into the race. And sort of, I was just concerned about doing the job I could do rather than trying to do anything else. And that actually, I was there for a reason.
That's good. So there was nothing to do with imposter syndrome or anything like that in terms of...
I don't think so. I felt a lot more sure of my seat last year, in terms of I knew it was I knew I'd be in the crew, but it still felt like I might get shuffled out of stroke. But turns out I stroked it pretty much the whole term.
Well, let's turn to race day. Let's just go through the race, which, you know, the bits you remember. So you had a good night's sleep or sleepless night, or?
No, I had a pretty good night's sleep actually. I think you know, you try and bank up as much as you can ahead of the race. But actually, we'd had a really good day of training the day before. We'd hit a really nice rhythm, and it was just sort of you just sort of think, you know, if we get out and get that rhythm down, that's all you can do really, and it's up to Oxford to be faster. And if they're faster, congratulations. But you know, I thought back, I'd really enjoyed the season, and you know, if it takes losing, then you know, you don't want to lose. But if you got the chance to lose 100 times just to get to do the season again, I'd probably choose to do the season again.
Oh,
I had so
wow.
much fun. So
Yeah.
but then we hadn't lost, so you might as well try and win it.
Yeah. So what were the nerves like on that race morning for you?
I think I was a lot less nervous than I had been the year before. Still, you know, it you feel it quite deep down. I don't think it's sort of on a subconscious level. You know that it's coming, and you know how many people are going to be watching you, even if you're not thinking about it. Last year and this year, both times actually, I threw up from the nerves, which I hadn't done. I don't think I've done for any other race.
Oh, really? When?
About just while you're sitting in the changing rooms waiting to start warming up, about 2 hours, 90 minutes before the race.
Well, like in the loo or on the
Yeah,
floor, or?
yeah,
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 yeah, yeah.
yeah. Just I think it probably had too much lunch as well. You lose your appetite a bit. But Luca throws up all the time before big races. So
Yeah,
last year, I remember he came up and he said, "Oh, it's all right.
yeah,
It's not so bad." And I'd just thrown up all
yeah,
my lunch, and then I went back 5 minutes later and threw up again. This time, I threw up quite a lot of blood that year, and I was
oh,
suddenly very worried.
yeah,
And I thought, God, I'm not going to tell these guys. I think I told them on the podium. I was like, "Oh yeah, by the way,
yeah.
got quite a lot of blood. Probably just burst a vessel in blood vessel somewhere."
God,
Uh,
you talk a good game, you know, Matt.
do I?
God, I'm thinking if he was my son, I would be like, "What the bloody hell are you doing?"
Yeah.
There's a
This year I
couple of
made the smart decision to have tomato pasta for lunch, so I couldn't
um,
tell.
yeah, we're going to carry on with this. There's a couple of questions coming in, just which is great. Nick English and James Kwan. Nick English, as you know, in terms of so this is kind of just a little timeout on our
Yeah.
boat race journey. As a lightweight, which I guess you could explain what a lightweight is to people watching who don't have any idea of what a lightweight is. But clearly you didn't. You rode in the lightweight boat race in, was it in 21 or 22? You
20, 21 and 22.
22, yeah. So maybe you can just say what a lightweight is and what weight you raced at and how
Yeah.
different that was to lightweight.
So lightweights, it's the same race. We race on the same course as the heavies. All those 3 years. The middle one was in Ely, but the key bit is 4 hours before the 8 guys have to weigh in, and they have to average below 70 kilos, or 70. You can get 70 kilos bang on, I think. That's allowed, and no one can be above 72 and a half. So basically, everyone needs to be at or around 70 kilos. I think when I raced, I think I was 69.1. I was way too light in 21. I was 67.3.
Bloody hell.
And then I was back to 69.1. Maybe I was 69 flat in 22. So doing my bit.
Problems racing, getting to that weight?
Not really. I was quite. I was very, you know, twig-like as a teenager.
Yeah.
I think when I came to Cambridge, I wasn't much over 65. I think I didn't weigh myself much in first year when I just rode with college. I was probably 68. So it sort of, I eased myself into it by sort of coming in and being about the right size, and just sort of stayed there. But then by the time I did my last one, I was quite ill afterwards, and it took me a while to recover from that. And then basically I finished that and was.
Are you going to take more care of yourself in the future, Matt?
I think so.
That's good.
Bit of R&R.
What was your racing weight for this boat race?
What did I weigh in? 84, 83?
Oh, big guy.
Perhaps.
Yeah, you look good on it.
Sort of 77 quite quickly,
yeah.
And then I was 79.3 for the weigh-in last year.
Yeah.
So sort of steadily building up.
Maybe you can wrap James Kwan's question into what we talk about the race in terms of the technical model and rhythm, like at Cambridge. Yeah. And James Lee's got a good question, which we'll get to, James. But you were talking about the nerves and throwing up before the race. And then I guess having been in the race last year, the whole thing around the noise at the start and everything else was kind of no different. You'd lost the toss, hadn't you?
Yes. Yeah.
So, what was your plan? What was the thinking, as much as you can say?
For this year?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, well, we're lucky we had a little chat beforehand. Thanks, Ed. Where before we went out to do the toss, Rob said, pick Surrey if we win, but it looks like the tide might not turn up at Barnes, so if we don't get it, then that's fine. And it's a good job he said that before the toss, because if he'd said that after, there's no way we'd have believed him.
Yeah.
But Ed actually he'd been angling. He kept saying all week we should pick Middlesex. I believe we should go for Middlesex. It'd be so great to have the outside of the Long Bend. I'd love to race on Middlesex, and he got his wish.
Yeah.
So I don't think we minded too much. I don't think it changed the race plan a huge deal.
Yeah. So did the start feel the same as it did last year, or any different?
I think we had a better start than last year. Last year we not had a great first stroke. We had a better one this year and drove it out pretty high, up at 45, which is where we wanted to be. And then came onto rhythm pretty well, hitting about where we wanted to be on the rates down the line of boats to the Black Boy and coming around Fulham. And then,
what's your awareness? Just let people know in terms of your awareness of the other crew or stuff that's going on. Obviously, you're pretty important that you're focused in your boat.
Yeah, we were pretty heads in off the start. I think Oxford probably jumped out a little bit, but I think we were expecting them to do that. And I was sort of, I'd let them go over my shoulder. I would have been happy if they'd have been gone for however long. But we, and then actually maybe 30 seconds in, they appeared again, and I realised actually we were a couple of seats up off the start. So I think for us that was probably a good start. We knew Oxford would want to attack it pretty hard off the start. We'd seen them doing that in training in the week.
And technically, what are you trying to do when you transfer down off of that start pace with the high 40s into, what will be your race pace? How soon do you get into your race pace?
I think we're aiming to sort of push on to rhythm. It's a big thing for us. We drive it drive it onto rhythm rather than trying to stride or relax onto rhythm. So you take big strokes, and we just want to take long strokes. We're trying to get the length out front and hold it through to the back, and make sure that we're getting good work under the water, and that's what builds the rhythm, really.
In terms of length, because you're not the tallest in the crew, how do you manage to row your length?
I'm not the tallest, but I get quite decent length. I'm more.
What are we
I don't have a
talking
big.
about?
I'm sure.
How many degrees are we talking about forward?
Looking at 60, hopefully.
Yeah.
But thankfully, unlike some of the guys, maybe further back, I don't have as much of a gut that I need to squeeze past to get out there.
Who are you talking about? Tom Lynch?
No.
Kenny Copeland?
I couldn't possibly comment.
Oh, right, okay. So I guess around the outside of that bend, Fulham Football Bend, you're feeling good. There's a few clashes or steering stuff coming up. Talk us through that.
Yeah, it didn't feel like a clashy race. I mean, I guess we had both crews actually had a very clash-tastic fixture season. So it just felt like there was a bit of scrape of the blades, but I think I've watched it back, and I think I get it's just me and Glenister in their 2-seat.
Yeah.
I think he gets me. I get him for one, knock his blade up in the air, and he's back on at the next stroke, and he gets me a minute later. I catch a bit of water and carry on.
Yeah.
I don't think there was anything
in your
decisive.
In your pre-race talk, had you kind of said, because you think in Middlesex Station you've got to use the bend to your advantage, so you want to be up. Is there anything of that thinking, oh, good, this is?
I mean, I thought we were in a very good spot coming out of the start. We sort of thought that they'd try and blast out and get away, but we. So when we came out of the start up, I was already pretty pleased. I was chat to Luca and Seb the night before the race, and they were just like, "Oh my god, I hope we're up. I really hope we're up, and we can row our rhythm, and we don't freak out if we're down." And I thought, why don't we just try and row well if we're down?
Yeah.
But we came out up, and I thought, oh well, there you go. That's a plus. We can hit the rhythm we want to hit. And actually, even from before the bend, from sort of past the line of boats into the Black Boy and up to Barn Elms, it felt like we were going quicker than them. It felt like we were moving out, and we weren't calling any big push. You drive it hard off the start for sure, but it wasn't like we were doing anything special. It felt like we were just going quicker at our base pace, and that gave us a huge amount of confidence.
Tell us roughly when you guys did call a push, or did you not call a push the whole race?
I think I called for one at Hammersmith. I think we'd got the rate. The rate had come down a little bit down the reach.
So what were you looking at? What was that?
I was seeing 35, and then very occasionally it would flash 34, but which is around about where we'd want it. But I think it probably just wanted to be 35 half, 36 in those conditions, because it was nice and flat. We didn't really. There was a bit of a tail. We didn't really have an excuse to be seeing any 34s, and so we sort of lifted it there. We wanted, and it just felt like the legs needed to come down a little bit quicker. They were getting a bit sticky at that half slide, and I think that sort of lift was what really took us away. We had a good rhythm there.
Yeah,
the next few minutes.
So you were pleased with that response?
Yeah, definitely.
So at this point in the race, are you like, I'm where I want to be, everything's on track, or are you conscious that you've put more in than you might have done because it's a race? Or so physiologically or mentally, what's going on for you?
I was feeling pretty fine down the reach. I was checking my numbers, and they were all right. They're a bit lower than we wanted to be, but we were in a good spot. So I didn't want to freak out.
So when you say numbers, do you mean boat speed or pulse rate or
on the
pace coach?
yeah on the and the rate. So I didn't want to go nuts. Because if you're moving, then why change?
Because I've often heard it said maybe this was someone from Oxford, but the thing is, how hard are you going to be prepared to push when you're in like the Badlands of the middle of nowhere down Chiswick? How hard are you going to be prepared to push down that bit?
Yeah,
because that's often the key bit of the boat race. So how hard were you pushing down that bit?
Yeah, I think coming round Hammersmith, we talk a lot in the preparation of the race that actually, in any given race, there's only a few moments that really count, and the rest of it sort of takes care of itself. And sort of under Hammersmith, we could hear them calling. They were doing, a lot of it seemed like a lot of big pushes. I could feel them looking over down the Crabtree Reach. I could see them, checking we were there. It felt like they were really shoving the chips, and we were just at our base pace, trying to find a good rhythm. And so when it felt like they'd sort of run out of pushes at about just after Harrods coming into Hammersmith, we know they always like a big push at Harrods. And we were on the outside of the bend there, and they'd done their big push at Harrods. Coming into Harrods, it seemed like they might stick. I did think, oh, here we go, we're going to have to hold them around the whole of the bend. But then we sort of, I think they just ran out of pushes, and that's when I said, right, let's hoik it up, get out of here. And I think that was one of the key moments in that race. And you've just got to really gun it. And so yeah, the barn door was open, and we were trying to make sure the horse bolted.
Yeah. So you're not burying yourself, although in retrospect maybe you are, but you're rowing pretty effing hard down Chiswick. Good length, and all that.
You're going around the outside of their bend, right? Regardless of where you are on Middlesex, at that point you've got to be pushing pretty deep.
Right. So when is the first indication? So you kind of said, so you come out at the end of Chiswick, which I guess for people is roughly, I don't know, half to 2/3 of the way round, maybe not quite 2/3 of the way. So you're coming out of Chiswick. So when's the first indication?
Sort of, I think, sort of clock that actually we're in a really good spot. Coming out of Chiswick, the race. I've listened to the commentary back, and they have to tell people not to switch off. And then it sort of hits me that it's not that I was pushing super hard. The legs weren't. The legs are stinging. You're trying to sting the legs off the front, but it doesn't feel like my lungs are wrecked or anything. I just start to. It's down the A really that I sort of see a little bit come in.
Of what? Darkness?
Yeah, it just sort of your vision starts to.
What goes through your head? What's going through your head then?
My plan was at that point. I was like, all right, we're done here. As long as we keep them at bay, I'm fine to back off. Just trying to manage the race. and really, I think coming out of that push, you sort of realise you can reassess, and it was, maybe I could have done a bit less there, but you are where you are. So I was trying to just manage the race and basically keep getting to length, keep hitting the rhythm, trying not to let it fall off. It come down to started seeing a few more 34 halves on the box, and so I just wanted to keep driving it up, even if I wasn't, getting a lot down through the drive. I was trying to keep it lively there. Go
on.
Sorry, but then obviously that's when we come around the corner at Chiswick Pier, and hit the headwind, and that's when that sort of keeping it driving it becomes really tricky.
Why?
I think it was just trying to get the compression up, the blades. I don't know. I think just rowing into the headwind was maybe it shouldn't have been as hard as it was, but it just felt like we were, it takes a bit more effort to get out there at the front and hit the length. And I was there, thinking I've got to keep leading the guys out here for as long as I could. Just kept trying to get each stroke done. Really,
you've got to be a hero.
No, well, I think the main
well, you have
for me was I've got to just take the best next stroke I can.
Okay.
And it was sort of at every stroke, it's sort of, do you start to cut them short and hope the guys don't go short as well?
So before, people talk about redlining it. So you go onto this red line and then you hold it, which is really tough. So how long were you on the red line for? And like, when did it start going?
I think we wanted to hold I think I was on the red line, down the Crabtree Reach, and then through Harrods and Hammersmith, we started to lift it up.
Yeah.
And you try and cheat the line a bit, don't you? You say I'll have 10 now, and I'll give you 10 later.
Yeah.
And maybe I took 20 there, and then the loan shark comes after that.
So
it didn't feel like I was
no
going over the line, but adrenaline's a hell of a drug.
So you've had this call to Ed that he, Luca's the stroke or something, which he kind of misinterprets.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking then? He's not understood what I've said, or
I think
he
catches on quite quickly what I probably meant.
All right.
I'm starting to look pretty pale. Probably look a bit gaunt.
Have you got a pulse rate meter on?
Yeah, I did actually. I had my heart rate monitor on, but
and what were you at compared to your max?
I think I was up at 195, and I usually see I'll see maybe 100, low 200s, but that's usually at the start of the season when you're unfit.
Yeah.
And then in the season, 195 is about as high as it really ever goes. But it sort of got there quite quickly, and stayed there for a while, and then actually it starts to drop off at the end. If I remember rightly, I went through it.
You're coming down past the bandstand, which is just for those that don't know on the course, it's definitely, I think, past 2/3. It's coming up towards Barnes Bridge. So what's going on for you there? That tell us about your vision, your physiology.
Yeah, I think I was probably starting to shorten up there. I think there's a couple of strokes in the footage you can see where I just sort of lose the composure and the poise that you need to row well. And there's just that we watched it together on Sunday morning, and there's one stroke at the bandstand that you can see I just properly sky it and completely whiff
Oh,
one.
right.
And the guys, oh look, he's gone, and then the next couple of strokes I'm back to putting it in. But yeah, I think it was starting to be a bit hit and miss there, and I was starting to sort of, am I going to make it all the way down here? But at that point, I think Ed had called Luca's going to set a bit more of the rate here, and I could shorten up a little bit because I didn't feel like I needed to. But it felt like Luca was going to be setting that, so I didn't need to get all the way out there. But yeah, I was just sort of starting to get to the place where I was, Ed would be, eyes on me.
I was it. It
And
sounds like
I'd check, I'd give him a nod, I'd check that Oxford weren't coming back, and I could go back to a little bit of
there's a story about boys in the boat. I don't know you ever saw that movie.
I've read the book.
The Stroke Man. Well, it's a true story that he was kind of, I think he's suffering from pneumonia or something. He raced the Olympic final and he kind of was out of it. And the cox was like, stop talking to the crew and just talk to him, like, eyes on me. And then at some point, 1,000 meters into the 1936 Olympic final, his head went up and he was like, right, we're off.
Yeah. I wish that happened to me.
Yeah. So, so you're under Barnes Bridge.
Yeah.
So is it close? Is that experience of blackness closing in?
It pretty much closed down. I was sort of just trying to. Basically, I was listening to Ed, and full credit to him, he never sounded panicked. I didn't panic really. I was worrying. I was like, God, if they come back here, I've done it for the guys. But he kept pretty much cool as a cucumber. And so I just sort of, from his tone, I could tell that actually maybe we were going to be okay.
But you were just, when did you start just going through with your blade in the air and not really doing anything?
Probably just after Barnes, really.
Yeah.
Because it just sort of like, eventually I didn't have any of the poise. I couldn't really feel like I was stiff in my core or my shoulders, and so that's when the slump came, and then I was just sort of flopping around.
So is Ed not saying stop rowing and so you don't catch a crab? Because that was
he was saying give me a blade, in the last minute, 2 minutes, and I was there. No, I can't give him my blade, because I just thought were
you talking or you thinking?
I was just about thinking there, and I could just about no. When it came to him asking for my blade, but I just thought if I gave it to him, what do? I'd just flop. I might fall onto Luca, or I might fall onto the blade and catch it there. But if I keep trying to take the next stroke and just do the next stroke and don't crab, and do the next stroke and don't crab, you're moving with the rhythm of the boat, rather than getting shaken back and forward, which I thought would have been worse. But
so you're aware of not crabbing. You mustn't catch a crab where your blade, for those of you that don't know rowing, where your blade gets dug into the water and stops the boat practically. You're aware that that's the danger. And
yeah. I mean, I don't think I was thinking about. I didn't think I'd crab, really. I thought, it's nice conditions. Surprised anyone would think that I would crab in glass like that. It was quite nice once we were under Hammersmith, under Barnes even. But it's sort of Rob Baker talks a lot he said for the last few seasons, he talks a lot about a book called Touching the Void.
Yeah,
Guy falls down, breaks both his legs at the bottom
know
of
it well. Know it well.
ravine, yeah, and he just and it's all about, you know, every you know minute you've got a choice. Do you crawl to the next rock, or do you sit there and die?
Yeah.
And it was a bit like, you know, I'll just try and take the next stroke, because what else am I going to do? Flop around and catch a crab? So
That's fascinating. He actually in the film, I think, or probably in the book, but he says he targets a rock,
yeah,
and he's got to get there within, I don't know, 10 minutes or 20 minutes or something, and it was taking so much pain to get halfway that he doesn't think he can do anything, but he goes, I've got to get there, so up
Yeah.
he goes. And of course it's that notion of the next one.
I should clarify, I was also in nowhere near as bad a state as that.
No, well, yeah. Well, people thought you were, because
yeah,
you know, we're all looking at the TV, like millions were all around the world, really, and going, oh my God, this guy is in serious trouble.
yeah, and I mean, you know, obviously after Alex Wood in 2012, you know, it's a big concern. And so, but yeah, no, I was all right, really. I just needed a.
So, are you going to row again next year?
I hope so. I need to get some papers written, keep my supervisor happy.
Question from Bob Dwyer.
I mean, we'll see.
Okay, that's an interesting response.
I think there's probably guys who, if they come back, it'll be good to have them. But well, I mean, we'll see. I think it depends who the guys want and who we feel needs to lead the team.
So, in line with that, James Lee had a great question. I hope you're still there with us, James. Thank you if you are. Of your 5 boat race crews, which rower have you learnt the most from, and why? There's an interesting question.
That is, I mean, it's a very good question. I think I've been at the club at a interesting time. So I was a lightweight in the year that Tom and Ollie were at Cambridge. So I never actually rode with them, but got to know them that season. And so, you know, in terms of technical ability and approach, probably, you know, it's the really experienced guys like Luca and Ollie from the Blue Boat last year. You know, I was lucky to be in that bow seat, and I wanted to, you know, use it to learn as much as I could. Really enjoyed that from a technical aspect, but then actually, and I know why James has asked this question. I rode with him the first year I trialed with the lightweights, and I think actually, you know, James was he was a fun guy, and you know, the guys that year really taught me how to enjoy it, and that's why I came back for 4 more years. Really, it was just because, you know, we have so much fun with it, and the program is not so bad when you're laughing along with your best mates.
This is a bit of a silly question, really, but I'm going to ask it anyway, and you can certainly duck it. Commentators, including myself, were very surprised about Oxford and the distance that you put into them, and like what's gone on there, and also, you know, thinking maybe they're not rowing as well. Have you got any explanation to that or not? Have you spoken to anyone?
Not really. Just we've had some. I mean, we've had very nice messages from the guys, but nothing but congratulations. They've been, you know, nothing but great sportsmen. I'm you know, they seemed disappointed in their performance, but I think, you know, you always go out to win, and you know, it's tough when you don't. But you know, I thought they put up a good race, and I mean, I hope they can be proud of it. but yeah, no, I've
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So in terms of Cambridge, I think Kath Bishop, I don't know if you saw it, she wrote a piece in The Guardian about, it was mostly about the Cambridge women, but certainly about this attitude derived from her book, The Long Win, that it's about enjoyment, it's about fulfillment, it's about taking care of, you know, coach taking care of the crew taking care of each other, and the win at all cost mentality is not something that is it could be positively harmful to a squad or something like that. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, no, I think it's really interesting, and actually, it's on my to read list. Is The Long Win?
Yeah, it's worth
Um,
it.
But actually, we've got a bit that I always talk about with the guys the last 2 years, and it's from an interview with you and Tony O'Connor, and it's the bit I think it's near the end, and he's talking about before they fly out to Tokyo, and he sits them down and says, "Look, lads, you don't need this. This is just a thing that you want in your life, because if you need it, you'll never get it." I think it's so true about the boat race as well, and it frees you up a lot. You know, you don't need to win this race. If you've got to win this race and you get to the finish line and you've not won, then, you know, what are you going to do to look back with on your time there? Whereas, you know, if you know that you want it and you don't need it, but you want it really badly, and you're going to push yourself as hard as you can, or as hard as you're willing, considering how much you want it, and you know, you've put all this effort in, you want it pretty badly, you can push yourself pretty deep. But beyond that, then there's no harm in well, there's nothing to be gained by wishing you were by, you know, forcing yourself to feel like that's the end of the world, because, you know, what happens if they start to inch through you and you feel the race slipping away? You know, are you in a good mindset there? Probably not. So, you know, I mean, I think we've not said so far, but an incredible race from the Cambridge women this year. And, you know, that sort of mental fortitude to be, I mean, they were nearly, I mean, I think there were a bit of clear water between them at points. And to have the headspace to think, you know, we're going to keep grinding this out, let them blow up in the first 2K and row through them. And, you know, you've got to think, you know, they paced that race, you know, pretty perfectly, right? And shot through them around the inside of their bend, nearly perfect Surrey race. Whereas, you know, in that Oxford crew, if you put it all on winning this year and suddenly Cambridge are coming up on you, then you know, it's tricky. It's hard to stay in the right place mentally.
So do you fancy the stroke seat again if you make the crew next year?
Oh, I don't think Rob would be so silly. He's a wise man. We'll
somewhere like
whoever lets me near the keys. Yeah, Balpair. It was nice last year. Nice view.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. And just to give people an idea, I mean, have you ever had international ambitions or such like?
No. I did my last year as a lightweight. I did trials. I came third in the October November trial, fourth in the February one. I was the top under 23. But then I was quite ill through final trials, and basically didn't really get better for the rest of that season. So I missed that. That was my last year of under 23s, and then the guys that beat me, Jamie and Dale, went on and rode the double, but GB then cut their funding, and they were a ways ahead of me. So I think it didn't seem like it was worth sticking on the weight, considering, you know, might have helped my health getting back up in weight and everything. And then no lightweights anymore. So
I know, sad that is, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was going to ask you your 2K actually. I don't know how disposed you are to reveal.
Well, I can probably tell you, but because it's from a good long while ago. The last, we don't really do the 2K anymore on the program. So the last time I did one was actually at that November trials in 2021.
Oh wow!
Where I needed to go 6:30 to make the under 23 cut off.
Yeah.
My lifetime PB at that point was 6:35, and I went 6:28. And then I've not done one since. I think I'm getting there on the last 2K of my 5K, so hopefully I'll beat it soon. I need to go and do
one. Bob Dwyer's got another question. Thank you, Bob. Which I guess you might be able to, assuming you're in the boat in the stroke seat, or maybe in the 2 seat. I don't know.
I think I'd be in the Cox's seat actually.
Okay. All-time boat race best 8.
All time. Good question. Well, I'd probably want to take our finishing coach Marko Banovic.
Yeah, pretty cool guy.
95. Who else would I want? We're a big fan of the 2010 race, the Fred Gill rhythm from 2010. He could give him the keys.
Yeah, Fred might give him the keys to the stroke seat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Banovic at 7. Who's at 6?
Banovic at 7. One of the parishes, Ollie or Matt, I think. Maybe not Jasper.
All right, so fair enough. Matt Parish at 6. We'll kick Ollie out because his dad's got to be better than him, hasn't he? Or yeah, okay.
We can put TG and Wingo in the middle. 5 and 4.
I'm thinking Tom James is there somewhere. I'm thinking Streppelhoff and Holzenbein for the German contingent, maybe.
Yeah.
Henley, chairman sort of designate, Richard Phelps, is going to be pretty pissed off that you haven't named him so far.
Richard can be the coach.
Well, assistant coach, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, probably would. Yeah, I should probably say Rob, shouldn't I?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many greats.
There are. That's true.
It was. It was a real honour, sort of sitting in the stroke seat, thinking back to the guys that have done it before, even Luca Parish, and then Freddie, Natan, Fred Gill, the West. Yeah, how can I forget Kieran West?
Have you done any training since the boat race?
No, I've been meaning to.
I'm relieved at that. I'm thinking he hasn't gone and done a bloody training session, has he?
No, I need to hit the beach weights. But I've been sleeping for 12 hours a day instead, catching up.
Have you? Oh, yeah. But I think when you do train, you probably got to have a partner with you, and just check you're okay. And
all right, yeah, we'll see. Yeah, pace myself, build back slowly.
Yeah. So I guess you're going to keep yourself fit till it all kicks off again in September.
I think so. We've got to rally the guys around, see whether we want to go to Henley, or whether we're quite content on the beers for the moment.
Oh, a Henley Grand 8 from CUBC.
Oh, probably not. We'll see what combinations Motley Crew we can scrape together.
That's pretty good.
But we probably want to enter something.
Any tips for the Olympics coming up later this year?
Any tips?
Yeah.
For the Olympians or for the? I think Imo. If you're a betting man, Imogen Grant, Emily Craig.
Grant. Oh yeah, we love Imo. Yeah, definitely. Boat club colleague of yours, and she'll be racing in Varese actually in a few days' time, I think. Which will be great. So I guess your partner's speaking to you again now.
I think so. Yeah. I got up to. She said I was 93% forgiven the other day, and then she watched the race back, and I went back to 90. But hopefully it'll be all right.
And of all your blue races, lightweights and 2 heavyweights, which one tastes the sweetest right now?
That's a good question. I mean, I think which one felt the best to win was probably my third lightweight race as president. We'd lost 2, and it was sort of, and we'd lost the year before that. So everyone I'd rode with at the club who had rode with the lightweights had lost, and I was in every boat from Cambridge that lost to Oxford in all those years.
Yeah.
Everyone else in the club had won, and just me and all my mates had lost. And we finally, got the win. And I thought I was leaving Cambridge then. I thought that was the end of my undergrad.
Yeah.
I thought, that's it. It was a good way to sign off. But then, obviously, I mean, the doing the boat race, the one that I watched as a kid, is a whole nother feeling.
Yeah. And Matt, we did talk just before we went on air about the role of your mum, who's now sadly departed, in terms of getting you rowing.
Yeah.
It'd be nice just to talk a little bit about that before we close.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was not a very sporty kid at all, and I was top set maths, bottom set PE, and I sort of thought that was the way the world was, and then my mum was always very keen that I tried lots of things. She tried to get me to play all sorts of instruments that I was never very good at, and tried all the sports. Did a bit of basketball and pulled my hamstring and didn't want to go back. And then one year, it was 2013. I very attentively watched the boat race coverage, and I think I thought, this is strange. These people who are probably in their top set maths, and yet they're also being top set PE. And so she signed me up at the Learn to Row course at my local club at Durham Amateur Rowing Club.
Yeah,
big up. And it completely changed my life.
Oh wow!
I'm so glad I did. I was fully ready to write off sport and just not be a sporty person. But I'm really, really glad that all these opportunities have just come from that.
Yeah.
From giving it a go and not writing off all of sport.
Yeah. And what was your mum's name?
Irena.
And she got to see you race in your first lightweight race, even though it wasn't a win, as we've heard. But that's pretty cool. So people can take a lot of heart, I think, from that story of being top set maths and bottom set PE is not necessarily.
Absolutely. 11 years later, you can drool on national television.
This is the final question, Matt, from another Matthew. Beach sprints. You talked about working on your beach weights. 2028 in LA.
Oh, I don't know. It's pretty sacrilegious, I think, to talk to lightweights about.
Yeah, I think I think that's right. Actually, I think that's fair shout. Matt, it's been absolutely incredible listening to you.
Thanks so much.
And thank you very much for taking the time to talk us through your odyssey. It is a heroic story, whatever you say. And so I think you can put yourself in that category of hero, boat race hero. And it's been wonderful to chat with you.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a surreal experience to be on Crossy's Corner. Avid viewer, first time panelist.
Wicked. So we'll end the live part of the interview now. Bye, everybody. Thanks for tuning in.